So, have you ever looked at a massive advertising budget and just wondered, where does all that money actually go? Is it just a shot in the dark, or is there some kind of military-grade strategy behind it all? Well, today, we're opening up the strategist's playbook to see exactly how advertisers turn a budget from a wild guess into a powerful, targeted weapon. Okay, let's get into it.
And hey, real quick before we start, if you're into breaking down complex topics like this one, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button. It's seriously the best way to support what we do here and make sure you never miss an explainer.
You know, there's this classic story about a shoe company that sends two of its salespeople to a far-off region. The first one sends a message back saying, "It's a total disaster, forget it, nobody here even wears shoes." But the second one wires back, "This is a glorious opportunity. They don't have shoes, yet." That little story perfectly captures what strategy is all about. It's not just about what you see, but how you see it.
And that brings us right to our core question. I mean, in a world with thousands of TV channels, websites, you name it, how do you make sure your message actually hits the mark? How do you turn that big budget from a roll of the dice into a precision-guided missile? Well, the answer is media planning.
In this explainer, we're going to break down the 5 key steps from the strategist's playbook. We'll kick things off with the fundamental problem that all planners face. Then we'll move on to defining the target, understanding the key metrics, planning the campaign's impact, and finally, figuring out if it was all worth the money.
Our source material puts it brilliantly. Media isn't a scalpel, it's a weapon of mass destruction. So the planner's core problem is this: how do you wield all that power to hit your objective with maximum impact and, minimum wasted cash?
So, with that powerful weapon in hand, the very first rule of strategy kicks in. You have to know exactly what you're aiming for, because even the most powerful tool is totally useless without a clear target.
In media planning, we call this your target audience. But what's really fascinating here is the original Russian term from our source, mishen. This doesn't just mean audience. Its literal translation is bullseye, or target, the kind you'd find at a shooting range. This just perfectly reinforces that military mindset, right? Your audience isn't some vague cloud of people. It's a precise bullseye you need to hit.
So how do you build this bullseye? You layer different criteria. You don't just aim for women. Now, you start with a demographic base, like women aged 21 to 49. Then you add a socioeconomic layer, something like they're in a household headed by an entrepreneur. And finally, you might add a geographic constraint, like they have to live in Moscow. With each layer, your target gets smaller, sure, but it also gets way more precise.
Okay, so we've defined our bullseye, but how do we know if our shots are actually landing? Well, that's where the core metrics of media come in. Think of these as our spotters on the ground.
First up is the rating. This is the big one. A program's rating is the percentage of the total possible audience that was watching. So if a show has a 10 rating, it means 10% of everyone with a TV, doesn't matter if it was on or off, was tuned in. It's a measure against the entire universe of potential viewers.
Next up is share. Now this one gets confused with rating all the time, but the difference is absolutely critical. Share measures the percentage of households that were watching a specific program out of only the group that had their TVs turned on at that moment. It tells you how a show did against its direct competition in that specific time slot. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Rating answers the question, what percentage of the whole population saw my ad? It's about overall popularity. Share answers, of the people who are actually watching TV, how many chose my show? It's about competitive strength. So a show can have a low rating, but a super high share if it's on at 3 a.m. Not many people are watching TV in general, but it's dominating that small audience.
All right, now that we get the basic units of measurement, we can start planning the overall weight, or firepower, of our entire campaign.
And we do this using a metric called the gross rating point, or GRP. The calculation is simple. You just add up the rating of every single ad spot you run. If you run one ad in a show with a 10 rating and another in a show with a 15 rating, your total is 25 GRPs. Just think of it as the total tonnage or firepower your campaign is delivering.
Now, because GRPs are just a sum, the total can easily go above 100. As you can see from this example, a campaign across 3 regions delivered 253 GRPs. This confuses a lot of people at first, but it makes perfect sense when you remember you're not measuring unique people, you're just adding up the weight of each individual ad placement.
So really, the best way to think about GRPs is that it's the total amount of ammunition you've bought for your campaign. You might have 200 rounds or 200 GRPs to achieve your objective. But here's the key strategic question. How are you going to fire that ammunition? Are you going to use it to hit as many different people as possible, like a wide spray? Or are you going to hit the same group of people over and over again with focused bursts?
This choice defines the two components of your GRPs, reach and frequency. Reach is the percentage of unique people you hit at least once. It's your campaign's blast radius. Frequency is the average number of times you hit those people. That's the impact on target. A campaign with 100 GRPs could reach 50% of people an average of 2 times, or it could reach 20% of people an average of 5 times. That trade-off is the absolute heart of media strategy.
Finally, we get to the bottom line. A plan is useless if it's not cost-effective. A strategist has to know if they're buying their ammunition at a good price.
And for that, we use a metric called cost per point, or CPP. This is simply the price of buying 1 GRP for your target audience. If a 30-second ad in a show costs $10,000 and it delivers a 10 rating, your cost per point is $1,000. It is the unit price of your advertising firepower.
This slide makes it crystal clear why this matters. Look at Plan B. It has a higher total cost, $120,000 versus $100,000, but it delivers way more firepower, 150 GRPs. When you calculate the CPP, you see that Plan B is actually more efficient. You're only paying $800 for each unit of firepower compared to $1,000 in Plan A. So the lesson is, the cheapest plan isn't always the most efficient one.
So there you have it, the strategist playbook in 5 steps. Define your bullseye. Use rating and share to measure the field. Plan your total firepower with GRPs. Make the strategic choice between your blast radius, reach, and your impact, frequency. And finally, use CPP to make sure you're getting it all at the best price.
Which leaves us with a final, critical question for any strategist today. In a world that is just saturated with messages, what's more valuable? A wide blast that touches everyone lightly just once? Or a focused, repeated impact on the smaller group of people who truly matter? The answer to that is what separates a good plan from a great one.
If this explainer helped you crack the code on media planning, do us a favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe so you're ready for our next mission. Thanks for watching.